If your family has been in Texas for more than a generation, there's a decent chance someone in your bloodline lived or worked in a town that no longer exists. These are 12 Texas towns that quietly disappeared, and a few of them vanished in ways that will genuinely surprise you. Stay until the end. The last town on this list is one of the most unusual things that has ever happened to a community in this state. Number 12. Terlingua, Brewster County. Terlingua sits in the Big Bend country of Brewster County, hard against the Rio Grande and one of the most remote landscapes in North America. Today, it draws tourists. A famous chili cook-off runs there every year. A handful of full-time residents live among the ruins, and a few small businesses operate out of what are essentially the bones of a dead town. But what visitors see is built directly on top of what was once a functioning industrial city in the middle of the desert. In the 1890s, mercury ore was discovered in the mountains around Terlingua. The Chisos Mining Company moved in and built one of the most productive quicksilver operations in the United States on that remote hillside. Mercury, used in everything from industrial processes to explosives, was in serious demand, and Terlingua had it. At its peak, the district was producing a significant share of the entire country's mercury supply. The company built worker housing, a store, a school, and a church. Hundreds of families lived there, most of them Mexican and Mexican-American, in a company town that sat hours from the nearest city in any direction. Life in Terlingua was hard. The heat in summer was brutal. The isolation was total. Workers earned company wages, shopped at the company store, and had almost no way to leave without the company's help. But it was a real community. Children grew up there, families put down roots, and the town had its own rhythms and social life despite everything working against it. The collapse came from outside. Mercury prices dropped sharply when World War II ended in 1945. Wartime industrial demand had kept prices high. When that demand disappeared, the economics of mining cinnabar in the Chihuahuan Desert stopped making sense. The richest ore was already exhausted anyway. The Chisos Mining Company had declared bankruptcy in 1942. Operations wound down through the mid-1940s. When the company left, nearly everyone left with it. The store closed. The school closed. The houses stood empty in the desert sun. What makes Terlingua the most fascinating story on this list is what came after. The ruins are still there on the hillside. You can walk through the roofless buildings right now. The cemetery still holds the graves of miners and their families, and drawn by the remoteness and the strange beauty of it, a loose community of artists, eccentrics, and retirees has slowly settled in among those ruins over the past few decades. Terlingua is one of the only places in Texas where a dead town became something else entirely. Not restored, not demolished, just quietly inhabited again by completely different people, living inside the bones of what Mercury built and Mercury abandoned. Number 11. Tascosa, Oldham County. By the early 1880s, Tascosa was the unofficial capital of the Texas Panhandle. It started as a Hispanic sheep-herding settlement called Plaza Atascosa in the Canadian River Valley before the great cattle drives turned it into a major hub. Pat Garrett, the lawman who would later kill Billy the Kid, worked there as a sheriff. Billy the Kid himself passed through on multiple occasions. The town had a newspaper called the Tascosa Pioneer, a courthouse, multiple hotels, and a Boot Hill cemetery filling up faster than any town its size should. The violence was real. In one night in March 1886, 4 men were killed in a single gunfight near the Jenkins and Dunn Saloon. That incident became known as the Big Fight and was one of the deadliest confrontations in Panhandle history. Tascosa was not a quiet place. The open-range cattle industry built it. The brutal winter of 1886 to 1887, known across the West as the Great Die-Up, killed cattle across the Panhandle by the hundreds of thousands and gutted the open-range model overnight. Ranchers who had been running cattle on unfenced land for years were suddenly fencing everything. The era that had made Tascosa necessary was ending. Then the Rock Island Railroad laid its Panhandle line through a small settlement called Amarillo instead of Tascosa. That one decision finished what the drought had started. Commerce drained toward Amarillo immediately. By 1890, the population had collapsed. The courthouse closed. The newspaper shut down. In 1939, Cal Farley purchased the ruins and established Boys Ranch, a home for at-risk youth that still operates there today. The Boot Hill is still out there. The streets are not. If you are enjoying this, subscribe right now. We do this every week. Number 10 was once the second largest city in all of Texas. Number 10, Indianola, Calhoun County. In the mid-1800s, Indianola was the second largest city in Texas. Sitting on Matagorda Bay along the Gulf Coast, it outranked San Antonio and Houston. It was the primary port for German immigrants arriving in Texas. Tens of thousands of them came through Indianola in the 1840s and 1850s, for military supplies heading to frontier posts, and for cattle going out to market. Hotels, warehouses, customs houses, a waterfront district moving an enormous amount of goods. At its height, Indianola was one of the busiest ports on the Gulf of Mexico. On September 16, 1875, a major hurricane made direct landfall. The storm surge flooded the streets, destroyed hundreds of structures, and killed between 150 and 300 people. For a town of that size, the casualties were staggering. Indianola rebuilt anyway. Residents repaired the wharves, reconstructed the buildings, and refused to leave. There was too much invested, financially, emotionally, generationally, to walk away. That determination lasted exactly 11 years. On August 20th, 1886, a second hurricane hit, worse than the first. The surge didn't just flood Indianola, it swept through it. Fires broke out in the wreckage and burned through what the water hadn't already claimed. Survivors standing in the ruins of what had been the second city of Texas made a decision. They were not rebuilding again. Today, there are a few concrete foundations visible at low tide, a historical marker, and the Gulf, flat, calm, and completely indifferent to what it buried. Number 9 had 10,000 people. Then the company that built it decided it was done. Number 9, Thurber, Erath County. Thurber is the only town on this list that was not abandoned. It was deliberately dismantled. In the late 1880s, the Texas and Pacific Coal Company didn't just build a mine in Erath County, they built an entire city. The company owned every building, every house, every store. Workers rented from the company, bought groceries from the company store, sent children to company schools. Everything that touched daily life in Thurber flowed through the company and back into the company's pocket. At its peak in the early 1900s, Thurber had nearly 10,000 residents, the largest city between Fort Worth and El Paso. It had a brick plant, an opera house, a hotel, and workers from Poland, Italy, Mexico, and across the American South. Thurber was also one of the first fully unionized towns in Texas, with the United Mine Workers representing the workforce, a fact the company tolerated because it had no choice. When natural gas pipelines spread across Texas in the 1920s, coal demand collapsed. Railroads switched fuels. The mines stopped being profitable. In 1921, the company shut them down. Then, over the following years, they removed the town itself, pulled up the railroad tracks, demolished the buildings, took the company store apart, brick by brick. Workers who had spent their entire lives there were told to leave. By 1933, the population had gone from nearly 10,000 to a few dozen. A smokestack, a repurposed saloon, and one church remain. Everything else was not lost. It was taken. Number 8 was a county seat. Then a railroad moved and it was over. Number 8, Palo Pinto, Palo Pinto County. In the 1850s, Palo Pinto was founded as the county seat of Palo Pinto County, about 80 miles west of Fort Worth. It had a courthouse, a jail, hotels, saloons, and the commerce that naturally flows toward a seat of government on the Texas frontier. For several decades, it was a real hub, a place where land changed hands, cattle deals were struck, and anyone with legal business in the county had to show up eventually. The town sat in the Palo Pinto Creek Valley, surrounded by the rolling limestone hills that characterize that part of North Texas. It wasn't glamorous, but it was functional, and its designation as county seat gave it a stability that most frontier towns never had. In 1880, the Texas and Pacific Railroad laid tracks through the county and did not go through Palo Pinto. The line ran through Strawn and later through mineral wells, which would go on to become a major resort destination. Commerce shifted immediately toward the rail towns. Merchants relocated. The county seat designation followed the money. What is left of Palo Pinto today is a community of a few dozen people. The courthouse has been gone for over a century. A town built to be a permanent seat of government became nearly invisible because a railroad surveyor drew a line somewhere else on a map. Number 7. Best, Reagan County. Best appeared in the early 1920s after oil was discovered in Reagan County in the Permian Basin. The county itself had only been formally organized in 1903, and it was still very much open country when the oil came. Within a few years, Best had thousands of residents, multiple hotels, a weekly newspaper, and enough momentum that it was a serious candidate to become the county seat of Reagan County. It lost that vote to a town called Stiles. That loss stung, but Best kept growing on oil money. Then the fields around Best peaked faster than anyone had anticipated. Production dropped, investment dried up. Stiles was struggling for the same reasons. Reagan County found itself with 2 towns in decline instead of one stable center. The county seat eventually moved to Big Lake, which had railroad access and a more reliable economic base. Best collapsed almost immediately after. The newspaper folded. The hotels emptied. Residents packed up and followed the oil to the next boom in the next county. By the 1930s, Best was functionally empty. 14 years from county seat contender to abandoned lots in the desert. Number 6 had a courthouse, a post office, and a future. One railroad line ended all 3. Number 6, Frio Town, Frio County. When Frio County was formally organized in 1871, Frio Town was named the county seat. It sat along the Frio River in South Texas, a ranching and trading hub that had been serving the surrounding frontier territory since the 1850s. Courthouse, post office, full county government. A county seat in Texas was essentially a guaranteed future. Government functions bring people, people bring commerce, commerce builds a town. Then the International Great Northern Railroad came through Frio County in 1880 and did not come through Frio Town. The surveyors chose a route a few miles away, and a new town site along that route was platted and named Pearsall. Merchants in Frio Town saw immediately what was coming. Rail access meant everything in that era. It was the difference between a town that could move goods and a town that couldn't. Once Pearsall had rail service, the argument for Frio Town evaporated almost overnight. The county seat was moved to Pearsall in 1883. Within a few years, the courthouse was demolished, the post office was closed, and the people who had spent years building Frio Town into a functioning county capital had simply relocated down the road to where the train stopped. Nothing survives today. The Frio River still runs through that country. The land gives no indication a county seat ever stood there. Number 5 was forgotten for 60 years. Then, oil turned it into a city of 15,000 almost overnight. Number 5, Desdemona, Eastland County. Desdemona spent 60 years being completely unremarkable. A small farming and ranching community in Eastland County, established in the 1850s, with a post office, a few churches, a school, and a few hundred people living quiet lives on the North Texas prairie. It had been known briefly as Hogtown before residents pushed for a more dignified name. That is about the most interesting thing that had happened there in 6 decades. Then in September 1918, driller Joseph Duke struck oil just outside of town. Within months, Desdemona exploded from a forgotten village to an estimated 15,000 people. Derricks went up in backyards. Speculators, oil workers, gamblers, and merchants poured in from across the country. The roads turned to mud under the traffic. There were no real streets, no sewers, barely any law enforcement that could keep pace with the crowd. Men slept in shifts in boarding houses. Money moved fast and loud. By 1922, the productive wells were drilled out. The speculators left for the next strike in the next county. The population crashed back to a few hundred in a matter of months. The infrastructure built for 15,000 people sat empty and rotting. Built in a rush. Abandoned in a rush. Barely remembered outside of regional oil history. Number 4, lost the county seat, then lost the railroad. After that, there was nothing left to lose. Number 4, Ravanna. Fannin County. Ravanna was a real community. Established in Fannin County in North Texas in the 1870s, it grew steadily through the following decades. It had a post office, a school, churches, a general store, and the kind of civic fabric that holds a small town together. Residents were invested enough that they campaigned seriously to make Ravanna the county seat of Fannin County, a fight that would have secured its future. Bonham got the vote instead. That was the first blow. Then the railroad came through Fannin County and bypassed Ravanna entirely, routing through competing towns nearby. That was the second. Those two losses, the county seat and the railroad, removed every political and commercial reason for the town to exist. Businesses relocated. Residents followed the businesses. By the early 1900s, the post office had closed and the school had consolidated into a larger district. The community unraveled completely. Real infrastructure, real people, real ambition, gone because of decisions made in offices that had nothing to do with the quality of the community itself. Number 3, tried to farm land that the earth never had any intention of feeding anyone from. Number 3, Orla, Reeves County. In the early 1900s, families pushed into the Pecos River Valley in Reeves County, believing that with enough effort, that desert could be made productive. Orla grew around the Pecos Valley Southern Railway as a service point and farming community, a store, a post office, a school, and farms attempting to pull crops from soil that looked, from a distance, like it might just cooperate. The problem was the water. The Pecos River in that stretch carries an extreme level of natural salinity, the result of the river running through ancient salt deposits for hundreds of miles before reaching Reeves County. Too salty for crops, the underground water sources were not much better, yields were disappointing year after year. Drought through the 1920s and into the 1930s compounded everything. One by one, families gave up and left. The post office finally closed in 1971, long after most of the people were already gone. Today, Orla sits in the heart of the modern Permian Basin oil boom. Tanker trucks roll through on the highway constantly. The land that could not grow a crop is producing billions of dollars in oil every year. The people who tried to farm it, who stayed as long as the land would let them, have no monument, just a name still printed on a map that most Texans have never had reason to look at. Number 2 only existed because of the railroad. The day that changed, so did everything else. Number 2, Lobo, Culberson County. Lobo grew in the late 1800s because the Southern Pacific Railroad needed it. Steam locomotives crossing the Trans-Pecos Desert burned through enormous amounts of water, and that stretch of West Texas between Van Horn and the New Mexico line was brutally dry. Lobo was a water stop, a place where engines could refuel and crews could rest before pushing on through the desert. A post office opened, a school was built, ranching operations spread across the surrounding range, and a few hundred people built a quiet life around the rhythms of the railroad. Then diesel replaced steam. It happened gradually through the 1930s and 40s, but the effect on towns like Lobo was absolute. Diesel engines did not need water stops. The railroad still ran through, but it no longer needed Lobo for anything. The post office closed in 1942. Families left. The school shut down. The reason the town existed had simply ceased to exist. In the 1990s, artists bought the ruins and tried to give Lobo a second life. Murals on the broken adobe walls, sculptures in the scrub. For a while, it was a strange and interesting detour on Highway 90. The desert is patient. The buildings kept deteriorating. The art faded. Lobo went silent. Today, there are a few crumbling walls, a rusted water tower, and the highway cutting straight through what used to be the center of someone's life. And finally, number 1. Number 1, Concrete, DeWitt County. Concrete was a small farming community in DeWitt County in South Texas, established in the late 1800s along the Guadalupe River. A general store, a school, a post office, a few hundred people growing crops and raising cattle on the coastal prairie. It was never going to make headlines, but it was a real place. Families had lived there for generations, children had grown up knowing every face in town, and the community had the kind of quiet stability that most people in most eras have simply called home. In 1936, the Guadalupe flooded badly enough that the community never fully came back together. There was no single catastrophic moment, no mass casualty event. Families relocated to higher ground or to nearby towns. The school district consolidated, the post office closed, the buildings rotted or were torn down over the years that followed. Nobody declared concrete dead, it just dissolved. And that slow, unremarkable ending is more common in Texas ghost town history than most people realize. Not every town burns. Not every town gets swallowed by the Gulf or stripped down to nothing by a corporation. Some of them just quietly stop being towns, one family at a time, until the name on the map is all that's left. And somehow, that is the saddest ending of all. Subscribe and drop a comment letting us know what part of Texas you're from and what Texas town you want us to cover next.